All right, surprise, surprise, I was able to go ahead and record today. This is very nice. It's been a while since I've been able to and didn't expect to, but the art studio here is free, which is where my computer is set up. Just a quick look around, you can see there's all kinds of art and stuff, everything going on. Anyways, I have the ability to make use of it because here in this corner is where my desk is. And so yeah, this video is specifically to answer questions that me and a YouTuber subscriber were having a discussion. Brad Boychuk is his name. If you were to look at the comment section of, this is for others watching, the comment section of my Why Flat Earth Questions video, me and Brad Boychuk have a discussion going, and there's a lot of questions, a lot of things to bring up, and I promised him I would try to address and give answer to his questions in a video, which is what I'm doing right here, right now. So, Brad, as promised, this video is specifically for you, and I hope that it does help answer the questions you have. More specifically, I really want to be able to communicate my thoughts more clearly, which I definitely feel I can do on video. So, this thing's not cooperating. Pull up our discussion. What? Come on, take me to where I need to go. Just want to pull up the actual chat session, the comment section on the video, because that's where all the questions and things are that he and I had. I promised I'd go through them. Now, Brad, I thought it was interesting. I went and looked at your channel and just checked out the liked videos you had, and you had one video where said questions flat earthers can't answer. Now, I have no idea what your opinion was on that video, but I didn't think the video was that impressive. These questions, I think, let's see, out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, I think he went over 13 things. 2 of them were half-decent questions. The rest, there's no problem. I mean, flat earthers of all kinds of backgrounds have answered these questions very authoritatively, I think, anyways. So, anyways, there was questions about sunrises and sunsets, and you and me, of course, were going over this. There's no problem there, you know, on the flat Earth. I need to pull my camera so I can see. On the flat Earth, the sun and moon. There we go. Sun and moon rotate around, and it's only an area at a time. About half of it, a little less than half, is lit up at any one time. So sunsets and moons is just when the sun and moon move away from our point on Earth. And because of perspective, line of sight, we can only see so far. Of course, in our conversation, this brought up with me and Brad a conversation of how come you can see stars, because the assumption is that stars are millions of miles away, and I think this is a wrong assumption. I believe that the stars are, I don't know if they're a projection or whatever, but they're immediately above us on the dome, and the sun and the moon are within the dome, so they're only so far off the surface, you know. So of course we can see them as long as they're within our sight. But this, and then the stars are on the dome. The bottom edge of the dome is not that far above us. It's like that far above us. So, you know, that distance there, of course we can see. That's no problem. And that same distance from the dome to the Earth. There was a question about, you know, how far away the sun. This is too big, but the sun being able to see, there isn't a problem. And I'll try and get into that a little more later, because that was one contention me and Brad had. On that video, I just want to address these just to show you these are kind of, I think they're silly. There's a question about star movement, and that's not a problem. The stars all move together. In fact, flat earthers have what we think is a kind of a trump card against the globe Earth teaching, and that's the North Star. So far as we can see back in records, has always been in the same place, and from our own modern records, I mean, everybody can go out and see it, videotape it. Who has the ability to see North Star, of course, and it's always in the same place. all the other stars rotate around it. And I can't at this point remember all the details, but I remember this works better on a flat Earth model than it does on a globe, and is my understanding. So this is not a problem. Rockets. The guy's question was very simplistic on the video. We don't have a problem with rockets. They go up just the same. I don't quite understand. Anyways, satellite dishes. These don't prove anything, and we could certainly, there could be another way to get signals along. I always thought it was interesting that satellite dishes, in most cases, there's some exceptions, but in most cases, they're pointed at the horizon. And that's very interesting, because that could be interpreted as that it's not requiring a satellite, so to speak, but simply the signals coming across the Earth. Now, there is something, I'll try and get into it, but because of how high the dome is off the Earth, there could be, however NASA has figured out how to put satellites or something up there against the edge of the dome, whether it's as simple as using balloon technology, then the satellites just hover above us like that, which I've seen video down in Antarctica of them launching what looked like a satellite from the ground, and it was attached to a balloon. And according to the video, the guy who works down there who reported it, they launch these all the time. So if that's so, then there could be a lot of satellites up there. Satellites aren't fake; they're up there, but they're inside the dome. They're basically weather balloons. They're up here, right above. And so, of course, from the Earth, satellite dishes would be pointed towards satellites. They would be pointed towards the horizon because those satellite balloons are all up here, rotating around. Anyways, that's with a lot of these things. This isn't proof. This is just me attempting to answer. I think it's a good answer. I don't know. Maybe it's not. GPS. This isn't a problem. As I understand it, the GPS has been around long before satellites even existed. So, in other words, the global positioning is done ground-based, from a ground-based system, or it can be done. Maybe today it is done by satellites, but it's a ground-based system. Originally it was anyways. So this is not a problem. Google Maps isn't a problem. This is done by airplane. I mean, it could be done, again, it could be done by the satellites, but it's not hard to get planes up high with cameras. And I'm pretty sure that's how Google does it. But, you can argue both ways. ISS Livestream actually works against, specifically against NASA, but against the Globe Earth arguments, because the fisheye lens is given away whenever the large solar array gets in the lens in just the right spot, it curves. And the solar array is not curved, it's a straight apparatus. But it gives away that there's a fisheye lens on the camera. The other thing is, when you're paying attention, two things will give away that it's not a live stream. One is the weather pattern, if you can see where you are on the Earth, which used to live in Delaware, and that Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula right there on the east coast of the US, is very easy to see when it's a clear day. Also, if you can see just enough of it, but there's cloud cover, you can tell anyways what's going on with the weather. And when the live ISS feed is showing a completely different weather pattern than what I could see outside my window, well, that gave away that it wasn't live. Besides, when you're watching it long enough, there'll be cuts. The camera will stop and show up in a different spot. In one case, the astronaut picked up the camera, turned it around, looked at it, smiled, and it went off, and it switched to another point. Well, in two of the cases, when it switched the view slightly to what was right there in front. Now, there could be an argument that they're using different cameras. That's fine, but based on the cloud coverage and, because you can see the Earth below, it changed drastically. In one case, it went from completely overcast in a split second to clouds are gone. So, it's these things seem to give away that there's you can't trust what you see on the live feed, and it's probably not live. Well, in the two cases, it gives away that it's not live, when it's a clear day over the Delmarva Peninsula, and on the video you see it as it would go over the east coast of the U.S., and there's cloud coverage all over there. You can just barely see the bottom tip of Virginia, because part of the peninsula belongs to Virginia. Yeah, you can tell that it's not live. It was recorded at some other time. Disappearing objects due to the horizon. Let's kind of explain. I explained that a bit with the sunrise and sunsets. It's just going on beyond perspective. And moon landings. Again, that subject is very good from a flat Earth perspective, because studying the moon landings and all the videos and photos that exist shows a whole lot of anomalies and things that don't match up. And I'm taking too long with that, but unfortunately, time is precious. Okay, so just before I get into and trying to answer the questions, the people that I like to follow are with studying flat Earth, because they provide a lot of good information, is Rob Skiba, and his channel is with his name, ROBSKIBA, Rob Skiba. He has an excellent webpage I definitely recommend you check out if you want to study the flat Earth perspective. See why we think what we think. I think he does an amazing job, and it's www.testingtheglobe.com. Testingtheglobe.com. Rob Skiba. Amazing webpage where he just goes through in order the thought process of flat Earth. And then on YouTube, I really think you can't do better than to go through Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues. Mark Sargent, spelled Mark, M-A-R-K, S-A-R-G-E-N-T. Now if you go to his channel will have a little globe with his name in yellow, black background. I think there's 2 swords, little fire in the bottom of the globe. Anyways, the name is all one, and there's an extra K. So M-A-R-K-K-S-A-R-G-E-N-T. Mark Sargent, all one word, is his channel name, but Flat Earth Clues. And I believe there are 13, 18. I'm not sure how many there are. I think it's 13. But going through the Flat Earth Clues videos is an excellent way to study the subject. He goes over some very profound things, some very fascinating points of view, but also a lot of good information. So Rob Skiba, Mark Sargent, I would say these are my two primary people that I watch. I'm watching those videos from. This is where I get a lot of my flat Earth perspective. There's also some others that I've watched. Sometimes they're in live streams together. Other times it's individual videos. Robbie Davison, Richard Hopkins, Bob Nodell. His channel is also very excellent. I watch a lot of things on there. The Globe Busters channel. And there's also Jirianism. He has a very good channel. There's a few other channels I watched, but I can't at the time remember what they are, but just want to give the overview. Okay, so let's get into the questions that I promised to answer. So our conversation starts, and it starts right out with that sunset. I'm just going to small. Oh, I dropped my stone. There it is. Okay. So all I was trying to get across is we go over Brad Boychuk. We go over questions. You're asking about how the sunset works. Of course, we immediately jump into something else, but just trying to make this very clear. Gotta keep this in sight. When the sun is going around the Earth, it sheds light only a certain distance, and as it moves, it goes out of our line of sight. Our line of sight is, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's only so far. We can only see so far. Keep doing that. Our line of sight is only so far on the Earth. You know, if we're here, we can only see about this far, this way, that way, that kind of thing. So that to us, the sunset and sunrise is as the sun comes into our point of view and leaves our point of view, going beyond perspective. and because it's so high in the sky, we can see it. And this is also seen with long view shots. And I should have pulled it up. There is, that I know of, at least one web page. There is at least one web page where they have world records of long shots, and they've posted all the pictures on the web page where you can see, and they put it in meters how far they were able to see, and it's very far, very far. They post on the picture stats below, if they're on a mountain, how high up the elevation are, how high up the elevation they're looking at, and the distance. So they put all the numbers there for you to look at. I don't know how many times you've been up in an airplane. Just recently got to fly round trip, so put 2 more flights in, which puts my calculations right at 30. I've done 30 flights, so I've been up in the air quite a bit. Very familiar with planes and points of view. And one specific long point of view that I'll never forget having, and because of the specific situations beneath the plane and what I could see and recognize, and we knew where we were. I mean, it was a military plane, so we had a large screen in front of us on the wall that showed where we were, what sea we're over, what countries we're over. Anyways, I could look out my window. I could see Mount Ararat, which the back end of Turkey, which is, it's not square shaped, but it's, anyways, the back end of Turkey, in the middle. The back end of Turkey is where Mount Ararat is. It's the largest mountain back there. And I could see it out my plane window like it was just down there. Plus, beneath us, and I could just see it just through the bottom of the window, was the edge of the Black Sea. So we were very high up. Very high up. I don't remember the specific number, but just if you were to look on a map and put a plane up to where through the bottom of the window you can see the edge of the Black Sea, you can see the coastline, you can follow it on the map. You can see Mount Ararat, and then off in the distance, I mean, I'm seeing into Iraq, maybe even Saudi Arabia. I'm seeing very, very far from being up in that plane. And of course, the horizon, as it always is very flat. Now, at the time, it didn't even cross my mind problems with flat Earth globe, because I just assumed I'm still too close to the surface. Though I was thinking in my head, I wonder why we can't see the curve at this height, because I'm seeing, how far I'm seeing. I know that I recognize that I'm looking all the way across Turkey, part of the Mediterranean Sea, Iraq. I mean, it's all there, from Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. Now, looking back on it, I realize no wonder in my understanding right now, it probably is because it's flat, as we can see so far. Again, this isn't proof of nothing. This is just my perspective. This is what I've seen. But one of the problems, and one of the arguments we got into when it comes to this, I touched on this briefly already, I guess, but the sun, is only so far up. So, when it goes off into the distance, beyond our point of view, however many, thousands of miles that is, and I don't know, but maybe that's as far as we can see. The vanishing point might be like 3,000 miles or something. And I don't, the dome of the firmament, which has the stars in it, and that's rotating above us, it's not that far away. So as far as point of view, it's not a problem seeing the stars, because that's within that 3,000 miles, point of view from wherever you are here on the Earth, you can see. And I don't know if it's 3,000 miles. That's just the reference point here. Anyways, I don't know if the visual aid helped. It would have helped if I had been able to get at this video a lot sooner, but it's in the process of moving. So, excuse. All right. Aries failure. I remember we had an argument about Aries failure, Michelson-Gale experiment, Michelson-Morley experiment. There's also the Fitzgerald-Lawrence experiment and Sagnac. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 experiments that I've looked into, and for some reason you got stuck on the point that because these scientists came up with a different conclusion. Well, they came up with a specific conclusion. And I try to explain that I'm not worried about what conclusion they came about, because during the experiments, they accidentally came up with proof that seems to prove the flat Earth, or seems to prove there's no gravity, seems to prove the Earth's not moving. And that's the only point. That's all that I care about. That, as far as I can tell, that's all that flat earthers care about, is during the scientific experiments, which are well documented, and in these cases, the Michelson-Morley and Airy's failure have been repeated. And you can go on YouTube and watch others repeat the experiment. And they're only repeating that part of the experiment that demonstrates that the Earth is not moving, or that gravity is not in play. So, to that effect, usually it has to do with the Earth not moving. Forgive me, I am ignorant of much of the science surrounding, because I'm focusing on the one point, that this experiment was designed to demonstrate that the Earth's moving, and they had to adjust it because immediately in the experiment, because the Earth's not moving, things weren't lining up, so they had to adjust for the stillness of the Earth. And that's the point us flat earthers find fascinating. What are you doing on the desk? So I don't know if I can explain it any clearly. We're not worried about the conclusions. The conclusions to those specific experiments, in a sense, you're getting in the way again, don't matter. But stop it. Look, sit over there. That's your spot. Sit. And the conclusion of the experiments, as far as I know, don't disprove, don't get in the way of flat Earth. So that's not the problem. It's the point that during the experiment, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but that's the point. That's all we're worried about. During the experiment, they seemed to prove that the Earth did not move. Or in the one case, that the gravity, as explained by modern science, did not exist. Now, obviously, there's some, whatever is holding us down, that obviously is here. Whether we call it gravity, or I've heard a lot of flat earthers call it density. I don't care what it's called. There's obviously something that allows us and everything to sit in place. So I'm not going to argue against that. That would of course be foolish. The current, the contemporary explanation for gravity has issues, and it probably is not what the scientists that are in mainstream academia are saying. There's probably a better explanation, and density and understanding of density may be the better explanation, but we can move on. Okay. I thought it was interesting that called me a name and didn't recognize it. Called me a sheep. Ironically, from a Christian point of view, the Bible calls us sheep, but that's in a positive sense. You directly indicated the negative sense. I thought it was ironic that you didn't recognize you called me that. Anyways, it's fine. You made a note here about Dennis discovering mercury contained in fillings was toxic and removed it from practice. That's not true. The video I saw, it was a few years ago now. I think it's 4 years ago now. The dentist opened up the mercury filling, and he had whatever that machine is. It has a yellow screen, and you can hold the little mercury filling that he just freshly opened behind it. And the screen, through the screen, you could see the toxic mercury fumes coming out. And that was a modern, he just ordered it, mercury filling. So they have not all removed the toxic, the mercury out of the fillings. The good dentists have, and those, I don't know, there's pharmaceutical companies that create them have done it, but I have no idea what the purpose is, what the motivation is, but they still have it. And this is a whole nother subject. I didn't realize we got into this. What evidence is there that vaccines use that the vaccines used, some bad, toxic. You must be very ignorant of the entire. Do I have the books here? Oh, they're in my room. Vermicillium. You need to look up vermicillium. Well, if you just watched the documentary, because it's a good starting point, it gives you a lot of information, specific names, gives you data. If you want to look into the vaccine situation, watch the documentary For the Greater Good. But vermicillium is the toxic element that's used in drugs. Vermicillium is used in vaccines, most modern vaccines, because it's a very good carrier agent. It takes the elements, whatever they're trying to get the body to fight, and it takes the element and moves it into the body where it needs to go, through the bloodstream. The problem comes once that's done, once the whatever the little element of disease that it's carrying so the body can fight it gets where it goes, that vermicillium stays in the body and does damage. Usually staying in the joints, but more than often getting stuck up in the brain and interfering with the synapses. It's a form of aluminum, liquid aluminum, if I'm remembering correctly. But vermicillium is the toxic, one of the toxic elements. Because I've also read from, again, I have books and information in my library, and that's just the stuff I have. There's a lot more information online. I've definitely seen enough videos and watched enough doctors and professionals in the field who've taken the time to look into it and study and find out, oh, we're being given bad vaccines. And all these vaccines that are bad are the new ones because they fast-tracked in Congress so that there's a money issue. It always ties back to money. So you need to just, if you want to know, there's some research ability there, and I do highly recommend you start with the documentary For the Greater Good, because it's a good starting point. Again, it gives you the information, you can take it and go if you want to look into that. But there is definitely a lot of toxicity in modern vaccines, which is why people who know don't give their kids all the modern vaccines. If you think it's safe, you can still give them the older ones, the ones that were developed from the mid-1900s up to about the 1960s. There's like a series. There's like nine vaccines that are theoretically pretty solid. Well, I shouldn't say theoretically. The elements in it, they don't seem to have the bad elements in it. Though there's a very powerful argument from those doctors who understand human nutrition, and there's lots that do that believe otherwise, but majority doesn't prove anything. It's just the way humans are. There's an argument that vaccines aren't needed. I'll just leave it at that. All right, let's move on. You make a comment, Flat Earth fails to explain even the simplest phenomena that can easily be explained on the globe, horizon and sunset. And that's not true. I've seen plenty of Flat Earth explanations for horizon and sunset. Now maybe I tried to demonstrate it here. I won't do it again. But it is easy to explain, and I've seen plenty of plain explanations. I don't know who you're watching that would make you say that at that point. Maybe at this point you see more, I don't know. Okay, so here we get into where I'm, once again, just as a reminder, reading through your comments to see the different points. And I mentioned the vanishing point, and you're wondering about objects farther away. So as I try to explain, I don't believe the stars are that far away. And I use the term projection because I can't think of a better term. I mean, I don't know. Did God paint them on the firmament? Are they actual lights like light bulbs up there? The thing is, when you take amateur telescopes, amateur because, well, for one thing, we don't have access to the large telescopes. You have to have special permission, working on a science team, that kind of thing. The other is that, well, I don't trust the government and NASA to be 100% accurate. They can give good information. There are definitely times where I will trust in specific things where NASA gives them, or specific areas of the government. I mean, I used to work for the government, so It's not all bad. There's plenty of good people just doing their job. In fact, the vast majority of the people in NASA and government, I believe, they're not in on any conspiracy. They're just good, regular people doing their job. But because of the vast amount of compartmentalization, this guy in NASA doesn't know what this guy in NASA is doing. This guy in the Air Force doesn't know what this guy in the Army is doing. You can get the picture. We just don't know what we're all doing. We're only focused on and understand our section of our job and our point of view within a branch or department of the government. So compartmentalization allows things to be hidden. And one way to easily look into this is the Manhattan Project back in the late 40s, at the end of World War II and into the 50s. This was a project that at the time was highly classified and hidden. There was over 200,000 personnel working on it. But, because of compartmentalization, they all didn't know. The team working at the facility in Tennessee had no idea that they were also working in cohorts with the team out in Los Alamos, some scientists in Brookhaven and Long Island, and then of course, and there's also a facility in New Jersey. I mean, there's all over the place. And then of course there's the Pentagon, which is there in DC. So only people at the top are going to know the whole picture. Anyways, bit of a wandering thing there. And vanishing point. Maybe you don't understand vanishing point. On a horizon. On a horizon, when something goes away, the vanishing point is at the end. It's on the very end of the horizon. That is the vanishing point. Because you make a comment here. Also, it doesn't explain why the sun vanishes bottom up, as it would on the globe model, and not shrink until our eyes cannot perceive it. If vanishing point doesn't happen anywhere up, it's like a triangle. There's a height. That's when something's right above you, and the vanishing point on either side are those things that are disappearing. It's on the horizon. That's how vanishing point works. And when we're doing no, never mind, I won't do that. It'll take up too much time. When we're doing art and you're drawing lines on a paper, you can draw a straight line across the paper, call that your horizon. And then using lines, you can draw a building at the correct angle as you'd see it, using the lines moving towards the vanishing point. They all meet at the same spot. Okay, I need to move on. I thought it was odd that you said it doesn't matter what the stars might be. Of course it matters. It definitely matters. If the stars are, as modern science says, giant balls of gas millions of miles away, of course that matters. Because if we're seeing that light, then there's a huge explanation that needs to be come up with. And I would say on our end that makes it a little interesting. And definitely from the point of view that I'm coming from, that I think they're just right there above. And the vanishing point explains where we can see them. So it does matter what the stars might be. And they may very well generate their own light up there on the firmament. I just don't know the exact details. Ah, I see. The stars being on the dome means they're within a close distance to us. The sun's here within the firmament. Maybe I should get something. I should get a glass bowl from the kitchen, shouldn't I? The firmament's right here above us, and if it's only this far away, we can see that far away. The sun moving around, we can obviously see it as it's within our point of view. This is key. This is why. Because you asked the question, you still have to explain how the closer, brighter object, the sun, gets blocked out entirely, while more distant, less bright object, stars, can penetrate the atmosphere. So my understanding is the stars, they're right there. They're right there on the surface of the firmament. They're not out here shining away. They're right here. So they're not that far away. The light coming from right there on the surface of the inside of the firmament. And the sun, of course, is traveling, hopefully I don't have to keep using that. I see that came up a lot in our conversation. let's move forward. And my understanding is the sun and moon are inside the firmament dome. They're inside. At least I think so. There is one explanation that I have seen from a flat earther where a glass dome with a light on the outside, it can, I don't know what the right term is, reflect right in and appear to be on the inside. That gets into some deep science, and without being able to pull up a specific video and share it with you, I don't know if I can explain. Well, I can. I don't think I can. Okay, then we get into a long back and forth about the distance and geometry and math. And you ask for every time I see any kind of formulas, it makes me just get algebra. It can be fun. I remember when I almost understood algebra. It could be fun. All right, nothing blocks out. You have a question. Nothing blocks out the light of the sun. It's an area light. It only shines so far. It does not completely shine across the entire thing. It only shines so far as it goes around. So there's nothing that has to block it out. The light doesn't travel that far from the sun. Okay. So you asked, is perspective what causes the sunset? And I thought that was, yeah, that's a good perspective. As we see it, the sun's going away, it's a sunset. I think that is a good explanation. And then you go into triangles. What in the world? You mentioned something about an ASA triangle. Don't know what that is. Oh, I asked my friend, by the way, because you told me to. But to me, I think it's ridiculous. You can't. It's not logical to point at one thing and say, if this person doesn't know this thing, then he's not such and such. That's ridiculous. I don't know if there's anything in the world that requires the knowledge of one thing to be whatever, you know. Like if a scientist doesn't know, I don't know, some specific detail in biology, therefore he's not a scientist. What in the world? Or a mechanic doesn't know some specific detail in a car, therefore he's not a mechanic. Anyways, I did ask my friend about a parabola. He knew right away what it was. He went into an explanation. And I thought I had the notebook here on my desk. I must have put it somewhere else. But he wrote down, he explained it and wrote it down. I was going to show it on the video. But unfortunately, I have failed to bring the notebook here. I am just on a roll today. Anyways, I'll try and move on here. And we get back into some math here. And there was some misunderstanding when it came to explaining the sun. You said to me that you said, I asked you to draw 4 lines. You're an amateur artist, but this is too complicated. Let's go at this from a different angle. No, angles confuse you from a different perspective. I like that pun there. You claimed that the height of the sun was greater than the diameter of the sun. I did not claim that, so I don't know how that happens. How far away does the sun have to go for the larger height to disappear before the smaller sun? I said the height of the dome, the bottom edge of the firmament. Because the firmament is this glass structure above. There's the inside, there's the outside. I don't know how thick it is, but the inside, the surface, is where I'm presuming, and this is a presumption, that the stars are in that or on that somehow. Beneath is the atmosphere, you know, from the bottom of the firmament down to the earth. That's the atmosphere. The sun and moon go around inside the atmosphere. So, of course, the diameter of the sun and moon, which I believe the same size. I'm not 100% sure about that. But the sun and moon's diameters as they go around are, of course, way smaller than the height from the earth to the firmament. You know, that's what I was trying to explain, and this statement here by you showed I didn't do a good job. At least by words. At least by words. Because here in video form, you're able to get a whole lot more of the nonverbal cues see my hands, my face. You can hear the tone of my voice. All of that. My eyes. That's why I like doing, when it comes to specific things or getting in depth, I do appreciate the ability to at least do video. Obviously, the best form of communication is some kind of face-to-face communication. It's almost 100% when you're doing video chat, but it's definitely 100% when you're doing, in person. And of course, we humans still get confused, even in person arguing. I've had plenty of arguments with my friends. Not on this topic, actually, but many other topics. Okay, I'm trying to get down to... You make a comment, you say, Jonathan Carmona, the space between the sun and earth would appear to shrink, same as it... What are you talking about? It doesn't shrink, it stays the same as the space between railroad tracks. And that's interesting because that's a good way to show perspective. He says, but it wouldn't disappear before the sun. That's why perspective is the answer. Perspective is the answer, but I don't know what you're getting at there. Then you ask again, how does a sunset happen? There is an explanation that works. Flurf. Perspective clearly is the answer. I wonder if that's a typo. And then you make a comment about running. Busy man, busy. Let's see, did I give? Okay, so right there is where I start to say I'm going to do this video response. So hopefully by now I've already made that explanation clear about how sunlight works. I really hope so. If not, you can try to explain to me. Hey, feel free yourself to make a video, post it, and share it with me. Unfortunately, they removed the individual messaging for each other here on YouTube, so hopefully you'll see that this video's up, because I can't message it to you. Though I should look to see if you have an email. That would help. Okay. Okay, so here we go. I asked you lack of whole earth photos, and you gave an explanation. You didn't do a good job. I don't think you realized it, though. You probably thought you did a good job. So you're answering my question about lack of whole earth photos. You say, first of all, we've only recently been able to take pictures at all. And I understand that perspective. You know, the 1960s, where we got into space, isn't all that far away compared to all of history. And you said, even more recently, we've been able to get far enough from the surface to get a picture of the extremes. Well, Voyager was out there in the 70s, and Pioneer and these others. So we've had the ability to take far Earth pictures. I mean, isn't it Carl Sagan was inspired and wrote a little quote or poetry or something when he saw, I think it was Voyager, that supposedly turned back and took a picture of the sun, and supposedly in one of those rays in the sun you could see a little blue speck. That was Earth. It's a really cool documentary, which I should have that book here. And I don't. Shish. Anyways, yeah. So we've had ability. Maybe we haven't done it all that much. Yeah, we don't know what NASA's up to. But it's not that much recently. Anyways, so you say, I'm going to be a bit pedantic here. Because you were discussing science or business, you need to use as precise wording as possible. True, true, very good. You cannot see the whole Earth at one time because there's always more than one half hidden from view. Now, what in the world? Satellites that are far enough out can see, the whole half of the Earth. And that's what I was getting at, this kind of whole Earth view, the whole Earth, the whole thing. That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah, not the actual entire 100%. Yeah, we're only looking at 50%. But this kind of whole Earth view is what I'm talking about. If you Google and look up pictures of the whole Earth sphere and examine them, you'll find some very interesting phenomena. That was a little miscommunication there. So you're correct. You cannot see the whole Earth at one time because there's always more than one half hidden from view. Yes, I wasn't referring to that. I wrote more than one half because the horizon recedes as you gain altitude. The horizon is a tangent, and you start getting fancy with the words. Well, you get it. You see, whenever anything gets into the depths of math, into the depths of algebra, and this isn't depths. I know this is just touching on it, but that's bothersome. Line of sight and surface of the Earth. The reason why land masses are different sizes in the vault photos of the Earth is because the altitude at which they are taken. See this, and I understand that your attempt at logic here, but you didn't realize there's some limits here, and you're making some assumptions. If you actually look at the photos, NASA has an official photo for each year that they've taken a picture of Earth from above, supposedly, and each one is very different. The perspective, the distance from light and Earth does not explain it. I mean, the one where America fills the globe. No. Besides that, NASA's released a video where they explain that with most of these Earth shots, they've had to composite them from many pictures anyways, and they admit it's Photoshop because it has to be. They had to create it. And the artists that do are the ones explaining on the video. So not only are there very few, because there's like 2 of them that were allegedly taken during the Apollo missions from the moon, which would make sense. When you're on the moon, you'd want to take pictures of the Earth, logically. But what you're not realizing is, again, you need to look at these pictures, look at them side by side, and realize, oh, there's some very serious problems, and it's not explained, as you say, by the altitude. That does not explain the problem. Besides, if we get so close, you wouldn't be seeing the whole Earth at all. You'd simply see the landmass in front of you. That's it, right off to the edge of the camera. No, these are pictures that are supposedly taken from space. They can see all of Earth. That's what I'm talking about, whole Earth pictures. All of Earth, and instead of seeing the proportional continents, North America or South, something will be like zoomed in. It'll be changed. Zoomed in is not the right term. But it's not accurate. And because these things are photoshopped. Well, those are the issues. All right. Oh, did I ask the second question? I think I just started with 1. Good. Okay, so my second question, I asked about Antarctica, and we talked about that. I don't know if you looked into military projects Dominic, Project Fishbowl. When you combine these, Admiral Byrd's expedition, Project High Jump, Project Dominic, Project Fishbowls, there's just some very interesting clues there. But that's more helpful for people who are actually into the flat Earth study. It may not be helpful for those of you who don't believe it and you're on the outside, so to speak. Well, let's see. How do you answer? Oh, you focus in on the specific of the treaty. In terms of Admiral Byrd, don't tell me you're trusting a government agent all of a sudden. No. Okay. Trust, in my point of view, trust works in percentages. I will give a government agent that I have no clue who he is a very small percentage of trust. Those people that I've studied and I understand who they are, what they were doing, I think I understand their motivations, the percentage goes up. So I'll give Admiral Byrd maybe 60 to 70% of trust, but it's not 100% trust. I'm not going to trust everything he says. In one sense, it's, a grain of salt. Take everything with a grain of salt. So, yes, I put some trust in him. Like I did mention earlier in this video, I put a certain amount of trust because it's just reasonable to do so in anybody. But unless they prove otherwise, prove untrustworthy, then it's like, all right, I don't trust you at all. There's a certain level of trust with everybody. I'll leave it at that. Common tactic of flat earthers. No, you leave the realm of logic here and get into almost ad hominem attacks. That's not a good thing. You're not supposed to do that in arguments. That's not logical. That's appealing to emotion. You're not doing it, but you're almost appealing to ridicule. This is, it's evidence. What people say, who've been somewhere, who left documents, who left recordings or scientific experiments in the place of when you're talking about Tesla, Auguste Piccard. This is very important. You don't discount them because they're dead. What in the world? Come on, Brad. On that point, anyways, I trust this is not your overall thinking, but at least on this point, you did very poorly here. Okay, you said it's a common tactic of flat earthers to claim dead people were also flat earthers. Tesla and Auguste Piccard come to mind. I don't give a damn what a U.S. admiral was credited to have said, and that's a foolish thing to say. A very foolish thing to say. You say corroborate that evidence, then we'll discuss. Like, people and what they have to say is part of corroborating. It's part of the evidence. You're trying to push it aside. That was very foolish of you. You shouldn't do that. I mean, almost every single thing you and I are arguing, we have to refer to some dead guy. Lots of dead guys, men and women, because we've been around for thousands of years. Our modern nation has been around for 230 some years. I think it's 242. Anyways, so that was a little reprimand for you there. Okay, so here's where we get into specific of the treaty. So I get back into that. You send me the link. I do thank you for that. That was seems like that's a very good link. You make comments about questions I can ask. I was just trying to be polite. Okay. Studying the moon landings is interesting. You sidestep this completely. You say it's a rabbit hole, it's a waste of time. I would argue no mental rabbit hole is a waste of time. Those are the best things for your mind to do. Those of us who love learning, who love experiencing new paradigms, who love digging into things and understanding the whole world and universe around it better, we love rabbit holes. So it's a little disconcerting when I meet people like you who are like, oh, I don't care about that rabbit hole, it's a waste of time. It's like, oh, let me down, Chuck. Boy, Chuck. Well, I guess your name's Brad. But anyways, must be fake for your argument to be correct. It doesn't have to be fake. I wish it wasn't. I think space and moon landings and all this stuff is fascinating. I wish it was real. I'm frustrated to find that it seems like it can be shown to be fake. I got to meet the tech sergeant. I got to meet a tech sergeant. I got to work with him one-on-one. We were deployed for about 7 months together. He got to work at Area 51, well, in that Air Force test range. It's a giant area in southern Nevada. But he specifically got to work in an area where once they were done the project, as a reward, the captain in charge took him to see some neat stuff in the hangars. And one of the hangars, huge hangar, happened to have a moon landing, or I should say moon landscape, all built inside a hangar. That's what all that was in the hangar was, a moon landscape. He said it looked pretty real. There's even mountains, painted or projected in the back, whatever it was, some stand. It looked real. And then there was a lunar lander built right there, a replica. And the captain told them this was set up, this was used for pictures, staging photos, because they wanted to have some nice photos to give to Time Magazine, Discover Magazine, all that kind of thing. So that exists. There is a place, and that might be why some photos show up as fake, because they were taken there in that hangar. The official explanation was so they could have nice staged photos, because they weren't sure if the photos on the moon would, come out all right. They wanted to have something nice to show the public, which is fine. I'm fine with that. I'm just kind of surprised that they, are admitting that. Anyways, though it is at the Area 51, that it's Nellis Air Force Test Range, something like that is the name of the actual area. Area 51 is just one spot, because the entire region, because it's so huge, is divided into some 300 areas. Anyways, that's a different rabbit hole. But I think you're wrong when you say we don't need to bring up NASA at all in order to prove the shape of the Earth. I mean, I think that's very odd for you to say, because you, by making that admission, you're taking an entire chunk of what should be proof for you and putting it aside, saying, I don't need that. I mean, I guess that's good for you, but I'm wondering if you're just sidestepping that because you know that that's good proof for our side, because it is. If you have this entire government apparatus called NASA that's focusing on space, and so much of what they do can be demonstrated to have issues or shown to be fake, it's a very powerful argument against. It doesn't prove the Earth's flat, but it sure doesn't help the globe Earth believers. So that's very interesting tactic you take to say that you don't need NASA. Very interesting. I don't think it's a smart move, but you can make whatever move in your mind that makes you comfortable. So then I asked a question about, oh yes, you failed here. Okay, I asked a question about capturing distance. You know, cameras, video and camera, still shots and live shots of things at a distance. And you try to say refraction, you say easy refraction, bend light down, which makes objects appear to rise up. And though you are touching on a truth about refraction, and the actual science of refraction helps us, it doesn't help you guys at all. These views are not explained by refraction at all. You can see them directly. They're right there. Anything that's being refracted always has that little shimmer effect, or it's showing far above it. You're failing here, Brad. You're failing here. Refraction, bending light does not explain the long distance shots where you can see clearly the mountains, the hills, the further mountains, and or the buildings in the distance. See, again, and I don't really know if you realize you're doing it, but you're sidestepping these arguments. You think you have an answer, you're throwing this answer at you, and hey, you might feel the same way about me. And if you think I'm doing that, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to answer things as best I can and admitting where I can't answer something. So this might be just part of the human experience. We both have our points of view. We both have our perspective. We both seen things a certain way, and it's very hard to see it the other way. I don't know. All right, we'll move on. You make some comments about math. For some reason, you didn't understand what I was saying about myself and math. I made that clear, I guess. Okay. And then I thought it very strange that you did not understand the 7.98 per square mile. It's usually simplified on videos. And if you've looked at videos, I would think you've noticed, because both, you know, from that main academics, the guys on TV, Neil deGrasse Tyson, whoever you want, they'll talk about 8 inches per square mile. When you Google it, it's right there, as I explained. And yes, of course, flat earthers talk about it too. I don't get why you didn't point, like you thought I was pulling something out of there. I don't know. I don't know why you didn't understand 7.98. I thought I was being more specific when I brought that up. It's funny, I have the same argument. I think there's so much that proves a flat earth besides NASA. You think the exact opposite. There's so much that proves a globe besides NASA. I wish you'd look at it. If you really want to know, I wish you'd look into it. If you would take the time to like go through Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues, to read through, go through all of Rob Skiba's testingtheglobe.com. Sit down. It takes time. It takes time. I know it does. But if you want to know, you'll give the time. The Globe Busters channel, there's so many nice long seminars where they go through the details, the math, the science. It's amazing. And that's just 3 channels. There's so much besides that. I'm not talking about the foolish things. There are people out there who don't know what they're talking about, and they post things from their perspective. They might think they're right, but there's this. It's not very good. That's why I like Rob Skiba, Mark Sargent, and the Globebusters channel. For the most part, they stay on topic. They don't usually, they have sometimes, but they don't usually use logical fallacies. They do a very good job of proving their point. I made a comment about New Zealand. I have family that lives there. A brother and sister-in-law. Just reading your longer comment here. C call it a sunset video. Well, I definitely talked about it a bit, but it's more than just a sunset video. You know, I should have. Shoot, that's in my room too. I should have brought my dry erase board. I was going to do that. That would help. Drawing a few things. Use my artist skills. I thought it was interesting. You got to be careful of this. I have no idea how long you've been like looking into things or arguing with people, but making assumptions about somebody, as I've pointed out already in our discussion, this is a foolish thing to do. You made some assumption about Dr. Zach, which I've never heard of. I haven't looked him up yet. I still need to just to see. I want to see what he has to say. See if it's any good. And then you get into asking a friend about inch per square mile, describe a parabola. I didn't ask him 8 inches per square mile. Well, we did talk about it. He thought it was funny that your assumptions about him. But yeah, he understood parabola very good. And this is where you're wrong. You say if he can't, he isn't good at math. And that's nonsense. That is nonsense. Though I would bet anybody, by my estimation, anybody who's good at math probably can explain a parabola. I have no idea. But I'm not going to be so foolish as to give one criteria and say if they can't pass this, they're not such and such. That's not logical. And the guy is, yeah. I was very, very well reminded of his genius. My soul, he's very smart. He's looking at going back to school, and I didn't realize he has an associate's degree in his oh dear, was it electrical engineering? Mechanical engineering? Shoot, I forgot what it was. But he has his associate's degree from Penn State. And he's looking at going back to finish because he has a GI Bill. He served with me in the Air Force. Anyways, so besides the point. And you make a comment, Skiba isn't. He's very good at math. You really need to watch more of Rob Skiba's videos. It's possible he will make you at least a globe Earth skeptic if you were to watch his videos on the subject. He does have videos on other subjects like Bible subjects and stuff, but he also a lot of videos. He has a lot that has to do with the flat Earth. Okay. Hey, you throw down doctorate of history. I'm working towards a doctorate of history eventually. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Oh, I gave a long explanation there. No, I'm not. No, I'm not a security guard still. Did I answer that? I probably did. I did, yeah. 3 to 4 weeks. All right, so this video is just a little over an hour, so I think I should stop here. I hope I probably did a lousy job because I forgot the notepad with Aaron's notes. I thought I had it right here. Let me look real fast. Maybe I do have it. I thought I kept it right here. Specifically, when I went to his house last, brought it because I wanted him to be able to explain parabola, and I figured he would want to write stuff because he's very good at, you know, he did. He wrote down a whole slew of that was dumb. A whole slew of numbers, an entire explanation complete with formulas that was way over my head. But he knew what he was talking about. And I'm sure if you seem like you have a handle of math because you're not only ready with the algebra asking questions. But, I mean, I don't know if you're a math genius, so I don't know you, but you're better at math than me, that's for sure. I guess I should finish the video off with some questions that I wish I could get some good answers to from Globe Earth. You know, all the questions I asked you a couple, but you know, really, why don't we have any more modern from space pictures, photographs of Earth? There's a couple odd ones. There was one video that supposedly showed the moon coming in front of the Earth, but that looks very fake. They said it's real. I don't know. Why can we see so far? You tried to pass that up. Refraction, again, you need to study, because you need to see specifically how far people can see. You know, people in England being able to see to Ireland, people in California being able to look hundreds of miles up the coast, people in Spain being able to look across not only to Africa, but you know, over to France and the islands, and so many different places that I've seen, in Florida, being able to look all the way up almost to Georgia, all these kinds of things. Also, there's a specific thing, and refraction does explain it, when it comes to the temperature and the moisture content of the atmosphere in the day. You can go to one point where you might be looking 60 miles across from one point across the bay to a lighthouse. And one day, you might see the entire lighthouse, the sand, and the trees. Go there another day, different temperature, take the picture again, and you'll see the bottom half of it disappears. Do this 3, 4, 5 times, and you'll get different heights showing up. Because, I think it's the right thing, I think this is the right word, because refraction is causing the temperature to get in the way. The lighthouse sometimes shows up completely when it's more clear, and less so when there's more heat and moisture in the air. So there's definitely something going on with refraction, but on clear, cool days, you can see very far. And it's way too far. Way too far for if we're on a globe that is supposed to be 8 inches per square mile. Of course, everybody wants to know, well, everybody who studies anything to do with NASA, not even flat earthers, but everybody who studies wants to know, why does NASA lie to us? I don't know if you've looked at GPS tracking. If you watch Flat Earth Clues, one of the videos is specifically on the GPS tracking of airplanes, commercial flights. There's a very curious thing that happens with commercial flights in the southern hemisphere, which doesn't make any sense unless they're trying to hide something. And you really ought to look into the Antarctic situation where they're extremely protective of it. The South Pole shadow problem, if you look at the live shots of video cameras set in the South Pole, and they might very well have been live at some point, but when you try to follow shadows, because the cameras that are set up, or that were set up to watch, there's 24-hour cameras, it was supposed to be in Antarctica. You can watch the shadows move. You see the sun go across the sky, watch the shadows move, but there's a whole chunk where the shadow jumps. In other words, they're cutting out part of the video. And they're trying to say that the sun's always shining down there, but they don't provide any video evidence. Each of the videos, you know, examine them closely. You can see, you can't see a 24-hour shadow moving around objects. There's a big chunk of the shadow that's missing. In other words, there's a chunk of the video missing. Obviously, the flat earthers would argue that the video chunk that's missing is the part where they're cutting out the nighttime. Conspiracy argument, yes, but you know, there has to be an explanation for why that chunk of the video is missing every single time. There is no video that I've seen where there's 24-hour sun in Antarctica. What it should be on a globe, easy to get. You know, why does that not exist? There's a couple of these we already discussed in video, so I don't want to go over them again. A very good, if you wanted to look into NASA problems, there's a documentary, Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. That's a very interesting documentary. There's also the Apollo missions and the Van Allen radiation belt problems. NASA apparently threw away their trajectories in science and all this stuff. So they're having to do that all over again. That's very interesting. And there's also the radiation problem is that there's supposedly radiation belts around the Earth. But the first time Apollo went through, they didn't account for that, and there wasn't a problem. Now they're saying it is a problem. It's very a lot of radiation there. It's just inconsistencies. But that's NASA stuff, and supposedly that doesn't matter to you. All right, I'm done for now. I've talked plenty long. I hope I did a little better job explaining things. If I didn't, I don't know. Short of us getting together and talking someday in the future, it probably won't get better than this. If you want to, I don't know if you have any desire to post a video and try to give rebuttal, you certainly can, but you don't have to. Just thank you for your time, and anyone else who's watched through this video, if you have questions, you can certainly post them. But yeah, there's a lot of questions that need answers when it comes to many topics, but certainly this Earth topic. Is our Earth flat or is it a sphere? The answers to that questions seem rather elusive.